I'm gonna have some fun today. We're gonna learn a little bit about thermostats. I think you'll probably go in a lot greater depth on thermostat wiring in your electrical class. We need to know the basics of a thermostat before we can continue working on our furnaces. So that's what I'm gonna show you. So I'm kind of replicating in my drawing. This is a control board off one of our train furnaces. And this is gonna be pretty universal to what you'll see out in the industry. And so I took these terminals where the thermostat wires would normally wire up to. If you'll notice, there's some letters associated to each terminal. So we're gonna start with this red one. So there's literally a red wire connected to the R terminal. Kind of easy to remember. This is industry standard stuff. So it doesn't matter if you're working on a train or a carrier or what you're working on. If you're working on something from 100 years ago, this is the same color scheme that we've always used. Red is going to go up to the thermostat itself. And it's 24 volt hot. So we're sending 24 volt power through this path. It's a wire, a red wire, and it goes up to a terminal on our thermostat. And I've got one removed right here. You'll see there's very similar. There's a red, a W, a Y, and if you'll notice, R is red, W is white, Y is yellow, G is green. So the thermostat is acting as a switch. All we're doing is we're switching, we're taking the power that we're sending up here, and on a command for heat, we're going to close a switch and it's going to send power back to our control board, and then somewhere in this control board it's going to energize a relay. We don't really care about that right now. We're just going to concern ourselves with the switch. So I'm going to start with W1. So there's a wire that goes up, and let's just do this. And we learned in an earlier lab that a thermostat, a heating thermostat, is going to look like this. Something like that. And the way I drew that, always think of on these switches, the left-hand side is like a hinge, okay? It's hinged on that little dot. And this is the opening and closing action. So this thermostat is a heating thermostat. I know that because it's going to open on a rise in temperature. And when the temperature falls, when my room gets cold, the temperature falls, this switch is going to make. It's going to close on a temperature decrease, and it's going to open on a temperature increase. And if you think about it, your home, when you're sitting there at home, the house cools off in the wintertime, and this switch makes. So on the temperature drop, as your house cools off, this goes down and it makes on that contact, and that sends power down to our control board, and it'll energize W1. And somewhere in this control board, we don't need to worry about it right now, but somewhere in here there's a relay that this is going in circuitry and energizing, okay? Don't get too hung up on that. We're just going to learn about the thermostat. And so we have two W, and I'm sorry, I drew this with a green marker because that's what I've got. White wouldn't show up here. But this is generally a white wire, even though I drew it in green because I don't have unlimited colors. This would be a white, and this one is red. Red goes to R, white goes to W. Now, W2, what is that? There's another wire going to go up. I'm going to draw it like this. And so that's our second stage of cooling. This has two stages of cooling. So if our house continues to drop, if the offset is too far, this second thermostat will make. So this will be within 1 degree of our temperature set point. This is W1, W2. And so this is plus or minus 1 degree, and this one is generally going to be plus or minus 2 degrees of our thermostat set point. So this is our R terminal on our thermostat. Red terminal. Power comes in. It's going to provide power to both of these switches, and it's the temperature that changed that actuates these switches. So when the temperature drops, it comes back and it'll energize W1. Power goes back to our control board on a white wire. Boom, connects right here. Now in our lab, most of these W2s are a brown. And unfortunately, back in the old days, there was only one stage of heating and one stage of cooling. Well, all that's changed now. So when you get into 2-3 stages of heat and cooling, the wires become less and less universal. But bear with me for a second. There's a Y. So Y terminal also going to go up. Y terminal goes up. I'm going to draw it over here. We're going to have another temperature sensor, but it's going to look like this. It's our symbol for temp. And I know it's a cooling thermostat because it's on this hinge and it's on the bottom. So it makes on a temperature increase. So in the summertime, when you're at home, your house heats up. This makes on a temperature increase, sends power back to our control board telling us that we need cooling. A lot of this is done internally. So that's our Y1 terminal. Goes to our thermostat, Y1. And a lot of times there'll be a black or a common wire, and that's another wire that's going to go up. And because our thermostat is digital, it takes power to run this. So a lot of them, you can run a battery backup, but we're stealing power from the furnace to run the circuitry and the logic in this thermostat. So that consumes a small amount of power. So they'll take this, I'll draw it in black. I'm going to jump. Here's a load, and that's going to our thermostat. Okay, so red is power going up to our thermostat. W1 is your first stage of heating. W2 is your second stage of heating. Y is also your first stage of cooling. You can have 1 or 2 stages of cooling, depends on how sophisticated your system is. And G is always a green wire, and that runs our fan. So up in our thermostat, in our circuitry, without getting that too busy, there's a switch up there. If you ever look, you can run your fan independently of your furnace. You can make it run all the time. And that's what this G terminal is green, and that's fan. So red, or R, equals 4 volt. Black, (24 volt) neutral. Your white wire goes to W1. Heating stage 2. Red wire goes to R terminal here, and R terminal up here on our thermostat. Black is our common, neutral. You could call it neutral, 24 volts neutral. Red is 24 volts hot. And White wire goes to W1, which is our first stage of heating. Brown wire goes to W2, which is our second stage of heating. Y goes to cooling. And green is G, and that is fan. And we're gonna have another video coming up on what to do with all this information. Complete the worksheet, watch this video, give me some feedback, let me know what's going on, let me know how you're doing, let me know if everything makes sense, let me know if my drawing makes sense, let me know if these symbols make sense to you, let me know if I make sense. Have a nice day, everybody. I'm looking forward to next week when I get to see you again.